what is my biggest regret having left the job after 13 years? I get this question all the time. It's one of the questions I get most. And people say, oh, you have any regrets? And I would say my biggest regret is not leaving sooner. I did 13 years as a police officer, and I enjoyed many of those years. And people say, a job like a police officer or a teacher or a firefighter is a calling. And to me, it was a calling. I went to school to study medicine, to be a physician. But after 9/11 happened, I felt called to serve. And I wasn't able to, I was forbidden to go into the military by my mom. So I chose to go the route of becoming a police officer. That was my calling. It's what I wanted to do. And that was, and many young American men at that time following 9/11 were the same way. Many enlisted, many went into law enforcement, fire. And in that time, that was in that season of my life, that was my calling, and that's what I wanted to do. But we're all human beings, and sometimes a job that is a calling for us, after a certain time on the job, we change. Our priorities change, our lives change, our identities change, we mature, we notice things about the job that we didn't think were there, whether it's red tape or admin or anything like that, and you start seeing things differently. Whether, I know teachers who've experienced this after 15 years on the job. I know firefighters that have experienced this after 7 years on the job. I know police officers that have seen this and felt this after 10, 12 years on the job. It happens, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just nature. It's the nature of these jobs and these careers, and some people are called to do it, and they're called to do it for life, and that's amazing. Others, their priorities, their morals, their ethics, things change, and they have a shift. And there's nothing wrong with that either. And that's what happened with me. After, I would say it was around year 7 that I started to feel that change. I started seeing things in the police department I was working at, and I started noticing things about people in administration. I was the only minority officer there, and I was dealing with a lot of things. And there was a lot of things I could, brush off and push past. But then I started noticing things that I knew were going to be a problem long term for me. I saw certain people who clearly did not like me because of the color of my skin moving up the ranks to higher and higher positions. I knew that that was going to be a problem for me down the road in this all white police department. And I always tried to do my best to ignore those things, go and do my job, do a good job, do it to the best of my ability, help the people of the community. And it's all public record. Everyone can go look up my record during my time as a police officer, all my accolades, all my accomplishments, all my awards and recognitions. It's all public knowledge, so you can go there. Zero major disciplinary action. I was not someone who was a problem child, as they say. And so that to me was a time when I should have made a move, but there's a couple of things in play there. Year 7, you're kind of getting to top salary, at least at the agency I was with. You're kind of nearing that top salary, or at that top salary. And I was thinking to myself, there's pension, I have medical benefits, I have all these things that were holding me in, and that's the glue in police work, at least. I don't know how it is for teachers, maybe it's similar, things like that, but that was the glue that was holding me in, and that was the security blanket that I felt. I said, oh, well, it's a secure job. It has a secure, pension and benefits, and that's what kept me there. And I delayed. And so while I was on the job, because I started noticing these things, I intuitively said, I need to create a plan B. I want to create a plan B, and if I end up doing this career and do my 25 years, well, then that plan B will be nice and robust and built out by the time I get to that 25-year mark. Or I can build this plan B, and when I'm ready to step away from this career and enter the next chapter or season of my life, then maybe my next calling, and we have multiple callings in our lifetime, and many of us, and so I wanted to have that. I wanted to create that. And that's when I started building outside opportunities outside of police work. And I'm so glad I did, because had I not, I think it was about year 10 of my career when I started 221B Tactical. And man, I am so glad that I took that leap and I jumped. And you got to kind of bet on yourself. That's the biggest thing. You got to believe in yourself, and you got to bet on yourself that you can make this happen. And I did, and I'm glad I did, because in the end, when I left the department, after 13 years, I had something that was already 3 years in the works, that was already off and running, and the income from that was surpassing my police income. So that was a big deal for me, and that's why I was ready. Before everything that happened, I was ready to retire, leave early, and thankfully I was positioned for that because of the work I did from year 10 through year 12 or year 13. So there's a lot of guys who don't have that, and things happen to them, whether they get, injured or some kind of, whatever might be happening, red tape with admin, they get jammed up for something, you name it. There's a million things that could lead to a police officer's demise. And let me tell you, as many of you watching this know, if you're not on the A team and you're not on the A squad, you are out. And your partners, your squad mates, people that you went through the academy with that might be, have rank and you think have pull, none of that matters. They will all leave you in the dust. They will all feed you to the wolves. They don't care. They're only looking after themselves. And I realized that as I was going through what I went through, I couldn't believe all the people that I thought were good friends, that I had their back, they had my back. You'd gone to their wedding, you'd gone to birthday parties for their kids, you'd help them out on the weekends, helping like build a deck on the back of their house, and they're playing with their children in their backyard, helping them with all kinds of stuff. And yet when the shit hits the fan and the target is on your back, everyone was scattered like cockroaches with the light on, and no one wanted to touch you because they knew that if they supported you, the target would then be on their back. And there was zero support. And I didn't know that. I never thought that that would happen. And I'm not the only guy that's ever happened to. I've talked to numerous police officers that have dealt with issues on the job in their agency, and they said the same thing happened. They were like it was like they became like distance. No one was talking to them. The people weren't supporting them, and they were like, "Wait a second, hey!" The one guy said, "I was the best man in this guy's wedding, and he had rank, and he didn't say a word. He didn't stick up for me. He didn't do anything. He just left me out there to die." And I said, "Man, I know how that feels." So if there's any of you who think that won't happen to you, I can give you 20 guys right now who get on the phone with you and say, "My man, it happened. I didn't think it was going to happen to me, and it happened to me." So that's the other thing about police work, where people think it's this safety blanket and there's this security, but any given day, if something happens, or if they decide they want you gone, you're gone. So, and most people in the general public, they don't know that. But having that plan B is important, and I'm glad I did it. I should have left sooner, but one of the things that was always in my mind, and it's not a bad thing, was at my agency, to retire and receive a deferred pension, you had to vest, and to vest you had to do 10 years. After 10 years, you were vested in the pension system, and then at that point, you got like a couple of percentage of your salary, of your final salary, for your pension, and you don't receive that pension until you turn 55. So if you decided you wanted to leave after 15 years, you were already vested at year 10. So at 15 years, I don't know what it is, you get like 2 or 3% of your final salary when you turn 55. That's your pension. And so let's just say it's 3%. And you did 15 years, you get 3% for every year you did. So 15 times 3 is 45. So you would get 45% of your final salary as your pension when you turn 55. And it's different for every police department. Some agencies it's 2.5%, some agencies it's 3.5%, whatever. So everyone's different. So don't quote me on that. But it's all contractual. So you can get that deferred pension and you can technically retire. So there are people who I know that were in agencies similar to mine that they waited till year 10 so they could be vested in their pension, get that little small pension when they turn 55, nothing big, but hey, listen, it's better than nothing. And then they could walk away retired. You get a retired ID, you get the letter, you're retired, and you walk away, and if you, and that's the idea that guys say, like, if you get to the point where you're vested in the pension system and then you leave, once you're vested and you leave, you're retiring. because you're going to receive a pension. And any job you do where you stay long enough where you're going to receive a pension and you leave after that point, you're not quitting, you're retiring. Now, if you leave before you're vested and you're now not vested in the pension system, and you leave, let's say they say you got it, vested year 10 and you leave at year 8. So you leave the job, you have no deferred pension, you did not become vested in that pension system, so you don't retire. There you resign or you just quit, right? But if you make it to that point, then you're vested and you're getting a pension when you turn 55 or whatever the age is for the department you work for, and you retire. And some guys choose to do that. I should have done it sooner, but in my mind, I wanted to vest. So when I got to that year 10, I was vested. I definitely felt better because I realized, okay, now I can go anytime. And then I started, that's when I came up with 221B Tactical. I started that in my garage and I started building out. And I was, I was putting everything in place with human resources and everything like that to leave and get all that paperwork in order. Because I know it's a big step. It's a big thing to leave early, leave after 12 years on the job or leave after 13 years. And ironically, there was a couple of guys who left. I don't recall now, but I know there was at least one guy, maybe two guys that left and retired early, right around the same time where I was. And, they went off into other careers. One guy went into financial planning or something, and another guy went into like life insurance or something. And it happens, everyone, the job is a calling at first, and then sometimes things change and they want to go help people in a different capacity. The job has changed. I see people who absolutely love the job, but I see a lot of guys who say the job has changed over the years, and it's not the same job that it was when they signed up. There's a lot of different things they're dealing with that they didn't have to deal with when they first came on the job. So the job is different. And I know a lot of guys that, because they're vested and maybe they don't, they say they don't have any other opportunities, so they're like, oh, I'm stuck. No, first of all, no one's ever stuck. You are not stuck unless someone has like a gun to your head and a ball and chain around your ankle. You're not stuck. And I never felt that way. I never felt I was stuck. I always felt that if there was anything that was going to be possible for me, I had to make it possible. So I never felt stuck. But there's a lot of guys, especially on the video I did on the other channel, people were like, oh, I'm just stuck here. I would leave tomorrow, but I'm stuck here. And they feel stuck because of the pension and because of the benefits. And they're saying they feel stuck. And I can't imagine having 7, 8, 9, 10 years into a 25 or 30-year career and saying, I got to stay for another 20 years or whatever because I'm stuck here. I mean, I don't think that's a great way to live. Life is short. Anything can happen to you tomorrow. So for all those guys commenting, I wish I could leave, but I'm stuck and all that stuff, man, that's a poor mindset. You're not stuck. Create something today. If you don't feel like the job is for you anymore, create something outside of that and jump to that. And it may be tough at first. It may be a struggle at first. I know a lot of guys who left the job and they did something else and they struggled for a while, but then they got on, they got grounded. I kind of was able to build it while I was still on the job. And if you could do that, I highly recommend that. But some guys just, they break down. They can't do it anymore. I know a couple of guys that, man, I want to say that I went to the academy with that, I don't know, it was definitely before the 10-year mark. They bounced. They were like, yeah, I can't do this job anymore. And, they floated around for a while to, get their footing. But then they made it. They were hustlers. They ultimately made it, and they did it, and they're taking care of their families. And they started another business, got into another career. It happens. A lot of people do. It happens every single day, so it's not impossible. So, if you are on the job, you love the job, it's your calling, and you make ends meet, and with the pay, or you're maybe living paycheck to paycheck and what have you. But it's your calling, and you're doing the job for the love of it. No one becomes a cop or a firefighter or a teacher to become a millionaire, right? We all know that. We go to these careers and these jobs because we want to help, we want to serve. After 9/11, that was all I wanted to do. I wanted to give back and I wanted to serve in some capacity. And like I said, I wasn't alone in that. There were millions of young men across the country who felt the same way. And some joined the military. And but you got to listen to your heart. And if that changes, don't feel like you're stuck. The job is not for everyone forever. It is for some people, but not for everyone. So I would say that if you are in that position where you feel like you're being called to do something else, the job isn't, really giving you what you thought it would, or is no longer fulfilling you the way you thought it would fulfill you, and you're looking to exit, you know, I would listen to that. That's the only thing I could recommend. I would listen to that, because life is short, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and you only got one life to live, so you got to live it. You got to live it. So, you know, it's something that, listen to your heart. That's what I would say. People ask me all the time, and I should have listened to my heart a little sooner, but in the end, I did listen to my heart, and it put me in a position that has changed my life. I've been able to do things for my family and my friends and I've been able to do things for myself that would have never been possible if I were still a police officer, just from the standpoint of the income I was making and bringing into my home. It's not possible. I wouldn't be able to do it. And yeah, it took a lot of work, and it took a lot of sacrifice. There was a lot of days where I was working 3 times as long as I would have worked on patrol, but I was doing something for myself. I was working those 18-hour, 19, 20-hour days in my warehouse, in my factory, but that was for me. It was different than working a 18-hour shift at the police department, and you get a little overtime for it, but then afterwards, you don't have anything. The plan B can create something that overtime can never give you. You work that overtime, you pay taxes on that, and that's it, it's over. But if you create something else, another business, another hustle, and that can grow, when you retire, overtime's not there, but that business is still there, and you can continue to have that bring in money for you, or you can sell that business and have really literally create a second pension. So these are all things that I learned early on, that I thankfully knew to put in place and to have in the event something happened. And thank God I did. It's a blessing I did. And that's what I would just share with all of you, to have that. Don't rely solely on one source of income, because that source of income could be gone tomorrow. And you don't want to be left high and dry, especially if you have a family, children you got to take care of. And yeah, that's not, and we've seen it, right? We've seen what happens with some of these officers. They get jammed up with some BS shooting that gets politicized or something, and now they're on administrative leave without pay, and they got nothing. They're trying to GoFundMe. That's what they're praying for. People give to the GoFundMe, and if GoFundMe says, "Oh, we don't want to help raise money for a cop," well, then you're done. You're screwed. I mean, it's no way to live. It's no way to live, guys. So I hope this answers a question that so many people had from the last video, and to let people know that police work, firefighting, school teacher, man, they're just amazing jobs, and our society would not be what it is without the men and women out there that do those jobs. And we are all forever grateful. Well, not all. Most Americans are very grateful for the work and the commitment and the sacrifice of our first responders, our educators, and we'll never be able to thank them enough. I know for sure. Not only because I did the job, but even prior to doing the job, I was always thankful for our police officers that kept us safe and maintained law and order, and for the school teachers that guided me and helped me. And that is something that you could never discount. And all the people that do those jobs for a salary that isn't that great, man, they're sacrificing, and but there's those people that they're willing to make that sacrifice, and that's their calling, and that's amazing. And God bless all those folks, and nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. So this is not a video to say anything bad about the career or the job at all. Absolutely not. There's a lot of amazing people in these fields that do amazing work every single day. This video is more about for those people who reached out and said, it's just, what I'm not feeling it anymore. What can I do? What should I do? What should I do next? Because it's not there anymore. And for those people, this is what I did. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'll drop them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer any of the questions or comments you have. If you're on the job as a first responder or anything like that, and you're looking to maybe create something else outside to build a second pension or build a second income stream, and you don't want to do it through working overtime, because obviously that just evaporates in the end, let me know. I'll do my best to respond. There's a bunch of guys in my group over on school that I share these things with, that just sharing knowledge, bouncing ideas back and forth, and it's free. I share this knowledge to help people, and so if you're one of those people, reach out and let me know how I can help. All right, guys, for all of you that are on the job, stay safe. Always, watch their hands, watch your six, and get home safe. That's the most important thing. And for those who have any other questions, like I said, drop a comment, send a message, and help you out. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.